The dynamic between Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White is very interesting because clearly it's a relationship with a basis of respect. I mean, when Stephanie White was hired, Clark was thrilled, super excited. And coach said all the right things about coming in and coaching the Fever and coaching Caitlin Clark. Then fairly early in the season, I would say there was a bit of a philosophical divide, but it never got to be completely worked out, right? And it wasn't as if they were at odds, but I noticed when they would talk about things, and for instance, when Caitlin Clark had come back from one of her injuries. And
Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White were supposed to be one of the most unstoppable duos the WNBA had ever seen. A superstar rookie paired with a battle-tested coach ready to build an entire franchise around her. But before their partnership even had a chance to fully form, the cracks began to show, and what started as mutual excitement quickly turned into one of the most fascinating, misunderstood, and tension-filled dynamics in the entire league. From the outside, it looked perfect. Clark was thrilled when White was hired. White praised Clark endlessly. Fans believed the Fever finally had their blueprint until live on national television. Caitlin Clark dropped a brutally honest sentence that sent shockwaves across the sports world and exposed a deep philosophical divide that nobody expected. After returning from injury, Clark politely repeated some of White's talking points, setting better screens, playing off the ball.
And it wasn't as if they were at odds, but I noticed when they would talk about things, and for instance, when Caitlin Clark had come back from one of her injuries and Ari McDonald was there and they were asking about playing together, and Clark referenced some of the talking points Stephanie White has made, like being a better screener, about playing off ball, but then she, reiterated that she's at the best with the ball in her hands. And that reminded me of when I was there for the Liberty game, the first Liberty game that Clark got hurt in, not the one that she came back and exploded in. And before that game, there was a little bit of a hint of,
When Stephanie White was hired, the Indiana Fever acted like they had just secured the missing piece of a long-awaited puzzle. Caitlin Clark was genuinely excited, smiling through interviews, praising the hire, and fans believed this was the start of a franchise-changing partnership built on mutual respect and shared ambition. White talked about coming in with fresh energy, helping the Fever rebuild, and fully embracing Clark as the future of the organization. It looked like a perfect match on day one. A coach with experience and authority, paired with a rookie superstar hungry to change the entire trajectory of the league. The chemistry seemed instant, the vibe felt right, and the Fever's entire direction suddenly looked brighter than it had in years. But it didn't take long, barely a few weeks into the season, before tiny cracks began to appear. Not fights, not drama, not headlines. Just subtle signs that White and Clark weren't completely aligned on what the Fever should be and how Clark herself should play. At first, it was invisible to casual fans, but those who watched closely could see the early tension forming beneath the smiles. The foundation was solid, but something much deeper was quietly brewing underneath, a quiet friction that hinted this dream partnership might not stay perfect for long.
Fans took that and turned it into Stephanie White will destroy Caitlin Clark and all that. We never got a chance to see them completely gel. When Clark had come back, even when she was playing hobbled before the groin injury that ultimately ended her season when the ankle injury compounded it, the Fever were rolling. They had won a couple of games in a row there, but not only just did they win them, they looked like a machine. And that was with Clark struggling to shoot because she was obviously hobbled with injuries. But then when the Fever go on and they win without Caitlin Clark, and clearly Stephanie White proves she's a hell of a coach, and the rest of the team steps up, Clark celebrated.
The first real shift came quietly, almost too subtle for anyone outside the locker room to notice. But it was there, building little by little every single game. White had a very specific vision for how she wanted the Fever to play: more movement, more off-ball actions, more balance, while Caitlin Clark arrived in the league with a playing style that revolved around total control, non-stop playmaking, and dictating everything through her hands. These weren't small differences. They were two completely different basketball philosophies headed toward an inevitable collision. Clark would nod respectfully during press conferences, acknowledging the adjustments White wanted from her: better screens, more cutting, more off-ball involvement, but on the court, her instincts told a different story. She was wired to create, to orchestrate, to take over games. and that natural instinct clashed with White's system almost immediately. It wasn't an argument, it wasn't ego, it wasn't drama. It was simply the reality of pairing a generational talent who thrives with full control with a coach determined to reshape the structure around her.
On and they win without Caitlin Clark, and clearly Stephanie White proves she's a hell of a coach, and the rest of the team steps up. Clark celebrated in that moment, and I know for a fact that they have a good relationship, right? So it's just intriguing because they never got a chance to fully flesh out their on-court relationship. They have a great off-court relationship, and so much has been made of their relationship since without us having a chance to actually see the substance. And then when Stephanie White says anything, you know, it gets run with, like when she had talked about how important Kelsey Mitchell was to the team. I don't even forget the
Everything shifted the moment Caitlin Clark stepped in front of the cameras after returning from injury. She was calm, composed, respectful, until one sentence changed the entire tone of the interview and sent shockwaves through the entire WNBA. Reporters asked about her role, about adjusting to playing alongside teammates, about embracing more off-ball movement, and Clark began with the usual polite acknowledgement of Stephanie White's coaching points. She mentioned screening better, cutting harder, giving the offense more flow, but then her voice sharpened, her posture changed, and she dropped the line that instantly detonated across social media. "I'm at my best with the ball in my hands. No hesitation, no softening, no wiggle room." It was bold, it was honest, and it directly contradicted the exact system White was trying to install. In that moment, the air shifted. This wasn't just a player stating her preference. It was a superstar declaring her identity on national.
And then when Stephanie White says anything, you know, it gets run with, like when she had talked about how important Kelsey Mitchell was to the team. I don't even forget the exact comments, but it was the most innocent comment ever, especially when they're trying to re-sign Kelsey Mitchell in free agency. But it's like, wow, she didn't say Caitlin Clark was the be-all, end-all of everything all the time, and therefore she, you know, hates her. But regardless, Stephanie White was on with Sue Bird on her Bird's Eye View podcast and specifically talked about Caitlin Clark and said some things that I think fans will like to hear.
The moment Clark's sentence hit the broadcast, the WNBA world exploded. What was originally just a small philosophical difference instantly morphed into a full-scale narrative war, fueled by fans, media, and every social account desperate for engagement. Within hours, people were dissecting every word, every expression, every substitution from the entire season, trying to prove that Clark and Stephanie White were secretly battling each other behind the scenes. Comment sections turned into battlegrounds. Headlines exaggerated everything. Clips were cut, edited, and spun into storylines that made it seem like White was trying to suppress Clark's creativity, and Clark was rejecting White's authority. Suddenly, the narrative wasn't just rookie star adjusting to a new system. It became coach versus player, control versus freedom, old school versus new era, and fans ran with it like gasoline finally found a match. Even the smallest comments like White praising another player, mentioning off-ball actions, or complimenting a teammate were twisted into accusations that she didn't believe in Clark or wasn't building the offense around her. Social media magnified every micro-moment into a massive, dramatic crisis, creating a storm so intense that even their genuine respect and good relationship couldn't calm it. A quiet, subtle basketball disagreement had been transformed into a narrative monster, and suddenly Clark and White were no longer controlling the story was controlling them.
Especially coming from her.
How important was it to forge that relationship with her for all the reasons?
I mean, really important. You know, I'd had just a little bit of a relationship with Caitlin from calling her games a number of times, when she was in college. But it was very important. Look, she's obviously the centerpiece of everything that we do. And most importantly for me was just connecting and building trust. I don't know how she does what she does and handles it so gracefully. I'm not sure, myself as a 20.
As the media frenzy spun out of control, Stephanie White finally stepped forward to address everything directly, calmly, firmly, and with absolute clarity. Appearing on Sue Bird's Bird's Eye View podcast, White didn't dodge or sugarcoat a single thing. She made it crystal clear that her relationship with Caitlin Clark wasn't broken, wasn't toxic, and wasn't anything close to what the internet had turned it into. She emphasized trust, communication, and a shared competitiveness that she said made Clark special. But she also delivered one of her strongest messages yet. I'm a firm believer you have to coach and challenge your best players. No hesitation, no backtracking. She was openly stating that being the centerpiece of the team doesn't mean immunity from structure, accountability, or growth. And when she doubled down by saying she and Clark shared the same psycho-level competitiveness, she wasn't joking, she was establishing equal ground, announcing to the entire world that this was not a coach intimidated by a superstar, but a coach ready to push that superstar to her highest possible ceiling. It was the first time the public actually heard White's side, and it completely reframed the dynamic.
But I'm going to be honest, and I think that I certainly appreciate that about her. And I'm also the same kind of psycho that she is in terms of like competitiveness. Now it comes out in different ways, but we both just really want to win, and we want to set ourselves and our teammates up for success. And so it was really important for me, right away with her.
So a few important things I think that were said there. Number one was she's the centerpiece of everything that we do. So that will be received really well out there amongst CCFC. And it's right? Everybody knows that, both on the basketball court and from the bit.
What made this relationship so explosive wasn't disrespect or dislike. It was that both Clark and White are wired exactly the same way. Clark has a fierce, almost volcanic belief in her own instincts, the same mentality that made her a college legend and turned her deep threes into global highlights. She's always played with control, always trusted her vision, always pushed against being limited. And White, she's the same brand of competitor, direct, aggressive, obsessed with winning, unwilling to bend just because a player is talented. Their visions collided not because they clashed personally, but because both of them wanted the exact same thing, to win. One believed in total ball dominance, the other in structure and balance. One trusted instinct, the other trusted system. It wasn't ego versus ego, it was philosophy versus philosophy. Two brilliant basketball minds pushing each other at the exact same time, sometimes in sync, sometimes completely opposite. And even though it created public tension, it also created the exact type of pressure that forges champions. Their dynamic wasn't broken, it was unfinished.
For a little bit, because she had a little bit of that Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant DNA in her. And that's a great combination. So it's exciting to see how it goes going forward, because they didn't have a chance. They like each other. They trust each other. They're both great at what they do. So it's hard to see it not working out. And Caitlin, seeing what the team was able to do without her, that's got to be helpful in a certain sense to know what they're capable of. And then them knowing what they're capable of without her, and then knowing what she is capable of.
Then came the twist nobody expected. While Clark battled injuries and played through pain, the Fever suddenly started winning games without her, or with her noticeably limited. The ball moved differently. The system clicked. Stephanie White proved she could coach at an elite level even without her superstar running the floor. And instead of being bitter, Clark celebrated it, posting support, cheering her teammates, doing everything right publicly. But the rest of the world didn't see harmony, they saw fuel. If the Fever can win without Clark, does that validate White's system? If Clark is the centerpiece, why is the machine running smoother during her absence? These questions exploded online, intensifying the narrative instead of calming it. Every win without her became a debate. Every loss with her became an argument. What was supposed to be a temporary stretch turned into undeniable proof that this team had layers the public wasn't ready for. And, ironically, their success without her only made the conversation louder. Could White's structure and Clark's brilliance ever fully coexist on the same track? Through all the narrative storms, one thing gets overlooked. Clark and White barely had time to actually build their real on-court chemistry. Clark dealt with ankle issues, a groin injury, and constant physical targeting from opposing defenses. White was juggling team rotations, pressure, media chaos, and the weight of building an entire franchise around a rookie battling nonstop injuries. They had flashes of brilliance moments when the system sharpened and Clark elevated the offense, but never enough consistency to truly define who they could be together. Instead of a full season to develop rhythms, trust, timing, and a shared identity, they were thrown into survival mode almost immediately. The real partnership, the real experiment, the real version of Clark and White never got to exist. All the opinions, all the debates, all the drama, it's all based on fragments, not the complete picture. And that unfinished story is exactly why the future between them feels so unpredictable, so fascinating, and so explosive. So, now we're left with the biggest unanswered question in the WNBA. Can Caitlin Clark's unstoppable, ball-dominant genius and Stephanie White's disciplined, system-driven philosophy ever merge into something championship level, or are they destined to keep colliding until one finally gives way? The Fever have already shown they can win without Clark, and Clark has already proven she can elevate any team the moment she touches the floor. They trust each other, they respect each other, they genuinely like each other. Their off-court relationship is strong, but their on-court partnership is still a mystery trapped behind injuries, timing, pressure, and a season that never allowed them to fully sync their visions. What makes their future so electrifying isn't the drama, it's the potential. Because if these two competitive psychos ever lock perfectly into place, if Clark learns when to unleash her brilliance and when to let the system breathe, and if White learns how to build an offense that feeds Clark's instincts without losing structure, the Fever won't just be good, they'll be terrible.